So, TikToks. I'm going to have to manage you somehow. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is Dr. Tochi. For those of you who don't know me, remember to get your drink, your snack, your notebook, and your pen. We're going to have some more forbidden fruit today. We just came out of a member class where we talked about how to set up your daily ritual spiritual practices. Okay. So if you are a member, make sure you check your member video for today. That's part of your membership benefits. All right. Just a quick plug in here. If you need me for your divinations, consultations, spiritual practice coaching, and more, please go to my website at tochi.us, tochi.us, or drtochi.com to book your appointment with me. Okay. In 7 days' time, we're going to start our online spiritual fasting and cleansing retreat. Today is the last day to register at the early bird admission price. From tomorrow, the price will go up by $50. Okay. So if you want to be part of this 10-day experience, we're going to be going on for 10 days. We're going to be doing this spiritual cleanse and fast for 10 days. Be sure to send me an email at contact at tochi.us. Send me an email and I'll send you information on how to secure your seat. Okay? We're going to be meeting 2 hours every day for 10 days to do the spiritual cleanse and fast. And it's going to reset. The intention is to reset. It's going to reset. If you want more than just the spiritual fast and cleanse, you can sign up for the VIP. The VIP costs a little bit more, and you will get what's included in the VIP is cowrie shell divination with me, plus a spiritual counseling session with me, plus your own customized fasting and cleansing regimen be customized for you, and a whole bunch of other things included with that. Please remember to give the live stream a thumbs up. That lets the algorithm know that class has started, and it will notify our other classmates to come and join us. It also encourages me to put out more material like this. Hello, Love 3. All right. And remember, if you are on YouTube, you can also, there's a new feature out on YouTube called Hype. You can hype a video. So I would appreciate it if you do hype the video so that more people will join us and know what we're talking about. Because we're out here eating some forbidden fruit. Okay. Lots of people in the world need this forbidden fruit. Okay. If you're a member, make sure you're watching your member videos. And also for members, just to let you know, I tried out a new Patreon feature today. Okay. And now we can go live inside of Patreon. So no need to go to Google Meet and go to Zoom or go to YouTube or anything like that. Patreon now has this feature where you can actually do lives inside of Patreon. And, you know, Patreon creators, we've been asking for this for years. And they finally got around to getting that done. And I think that's a game changer. Because that way, instead of trying to hook up this and connect to this and the other and the whatnot, you can do everything right within Patreon, which I think is utterly beautiful. Okay. So if you are on Patreon, if you're on my Patreon, be advised that you can now um, watch me live inside of Patreon when we're having our member videos. And I think what's going to happen is at some point, um, it's just that there's just so many things to connect, because I'm live on TikTok right now. I'm live on YouTube. Um, I stopped going live on Instagram and Facebook because there wasn't like much going on there. Um, at some point, I'm going to have to figure out how to go live on Patreon without having to go through a live stream aggregator like StreamYard or the other one I used to use. Because the live stream aggregators, they do charge money, and their fees per year just keeps on going up. And so that's why many of us just decamped and just go straight to the native apps. Okay. All right. So are we ready for today's class? We're going to talk about the Jesus egregor and the apparitions of Jesus. And what do we mean by that? Now, TikTok folks, you know what? Let me get this thing because I'm over here propping you guys up. Okay, TikTok, hold on. Let me get this here. I'm just like needing some real estate over here. So, pardon me. This needs some real estate. Okay, there we go. Hopefully. Okay. Thank you, Love 3. Yay, look at all those gifts on TikTok. So remember to give the live stream a thumbs up. Give the class a thumbs up. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, and I'm going to consult my notes over here on the side. Go popular! I'm getting all these gifts on TikTok. Okay, so one of the questions that has come up is, okay, if we're saying that people are actually working with a Jesus egregor, and this egregor has nothing to do with the historical man Jesus, how do we explain people who say that they're seeing Jesus and they're hearing Jesus? If you were part of our class, when did we do that class? When I talked, I think it was Wednesday night, I had a live stream, and if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go watch that live stream. We had a class on uh, the egregor, Jesus egregor called Divine Mercy, and we examined how that egregor was set up, okay, and how that was set up by a Catholic nun. If you haven't watched that, I encourage you to go and watch it, how that Jesus egregor was set up by a Catholic nun, okay? But what we understood from that video class is that these things can be done. And in that class, we saw that what she had to go through in order to set it up. Thank you, Love 3. My goodness, look at all the gifts. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Okay. So we understand that this can be set up. Is it an easy endeavor? No, it's not. If you don't know what an egregor is, I will refer you to my free videos on YouTube. I have one video I did last year, the year before, called Egregors and Servitors. And I also did another recent one called What is an Egregor? And so you can watch those videos and understand what an egregor means. Okay. An egregor is set up by a group. One person cannot set up an egregor. If one person sets something up, it's called a servitor. So servitors are usually set up by one person, but egregores are set up by groups of people. Okay. And we've already traced the history of, the Jesus egregor and what it means. Because a lot of people today think that they're worshiping Jesus, they think they're venerating Jesus, they think that they're honoring Jesus, the man, but that's not what they're doing. They're working with an egregor. Okay. And for some people, this egregor works. And for some people, the egregor doesn't work. Okay. And the difference is that some people know how to tap into the egregor, and some people don't know how to tap into the egregor. Okay. If you're on YouTube, do you hear me okay? Because we had a member class and people were having a little bit of a snafu hearing me on YouTube. So if you're hearing me okay on YouTube, can you let me know? Can you hear me okay on YouTube? If you can hear me okay on YouTube, let me know. Okay, thank you very much. All right. So we have people for thousands of years since, Jesus the man walked the earth saying, yes, Jesus came to me and Jesus spoke to me. I saw Jesus, Jesus showed up to me. So we're not just talking about people saying that Jesus showed up to them in their dreams. We're talking about people who say, I was out here minding my own business and Jesus showed up. And I was talking to Jesus face to face. Okay. So, what does that mean vis a vis the Jesus egregor? Okay. So, when we talk about these visions of Jesus, we call these apparitions. Okay. Okay. It's called an apparition. An apparition is not a derogatory term. It is not. It is just English. Okay. Because I know some people will jump up and say, "Well, are you calling my Jesus an apparition?" An apparition just means um, a manifestation. That's what an apparition means. Now, sometimes you will hear ghosts referred to as apparitions. You will hear spirits referred to as apparitions. But basically, it's a manifestation, something that you can see with your two eyes and hear with your two ears. And some apparitions can appear to be so real that you can touch them and sense them with your own fingers. Okay. So we need to go back to our understanding about egregores. Remember when I talked about how people set up egregores? Some people are so expert, especially occultists and master magicians and master occultists and master magicians and master metaphysicians. They're expert at setting up egregores, and they can set up an egregor to the point that the egregor will appear like a walking, talking, eating human being. Remember, I gave an example of the Tibetan tulpas. The Tibetan tulpas are egregores made by Tibetan monks. And these monks made these egregores because they wanted something that would help the people. So they would create an egregore, and this egregore will appear and manifest like a real human being. And you could interact with it, it will talk to you, talk to it, it will do things, and they would assign a certain function to that egregore. And what do we mean by that? They will say, this egregore does this specific thing. Whenever an egregore is set up, it has a specific function. You can't just have an egregore that's just, okay, this egregore will do everything. No, it has to have a specific function. Remember last Wednesday when we were talking about Jesus, the egregore as showing up as Jesus of divine mercy? I spoke with a devout Catholic a few days ago, and I was discussing my class and discussing my findings with her. And she said to me, "Oh, did you know in our Catholic Church we have so many of these things? And there's another one we have called precious blood. So there's divine mercy, there's precious blood, and there are others." And I said, "Oh, wow." And somewhere in the back of my mind, I was saying, okay, this is area for more research and discovery. So because now we can now discover these different Jesus egregors. And she started telling me that these different Jesus egregores were doing different functions. They perform different functions. Now, understand this: she didn't call them egregores. She all she knew is that, oh, there's Jesus of divine mercy, Jesus of precious blood, Jesus of this, and Jesus of that. And she did say that these were set up by their Catholic nuns and monks and priests. Devout Catholics set these things up. And so I started asking her, I said, okay, so what's the function of the precious blood? And she started going into, well, in order to get it to, is forgiveness of sins, to be forgiven. But you have to be, and she started listing the conditions. So remember when we're talking about egregors have conditions. And you have to have a way to trigger it. It has a trigger word. Once you mention that trigger word or trigger phrase, it is activated and it's listening. And then you do what you're supposed to do, then it starts functioning. And remember when we talked about divine mercy, the Jesus of divine mercy last Wednesday, we said it had its own trigger word, it had its own trigger phrase. And once you use that trigger phase, you got the attention of that egregor. Once you got its attention, then you could start working with it. Does anybody remember what the trigger phrase for Jesus of Divine Mercy was? We talked about this last Wednesday. So let's see if let's see if anyone can remember that. You're saying sometimes you freeze up. Okay. Um I'm going to go ahead and refresh YouTube. Okay, so if you're on YouTube, you're going to experience a pause. I'm going to refresh the browser window. Thank you, Miss Ife. Yay! Miss Ife got it. Jesus, I trust in you. Yes. We have an attentive person in the house. Let's give her an instant prize for that. She was listening. She was listening. Here, let's give her let's give her an instant prize for that. Okay, let's give her an instant prize for that. Yay! Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. So we have somebody who is listening to the classes. So let's give her. Okay. So Miss Ife, this is for you. Okay. See what it says? Magic. So expect magic. Expect magic. Expect miracles. Expect interesting things to start happening for you. Let's look at this. Magic. Okay. You are a magical being. Stop hiding the awe inspiring abilities you have to connect to the divine. This sign of the pentacle invites you to connect with your personal magic on a deeper level. Work with the phases of the moon in your rituals and with herbs, candles, crystals, and spell work. Find what suits you best with love and with harm to none. The thing that you have in your heart that you've been wondering about will start unfolding and manifesting. There you go. Love 3. Tap, 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 tap. Yes, folks, remember the thumbs up for the live stream. We have many people on, but few thumbs up. Please give a thumbs up. That notifies people that class is in session. So, Miss Ife got it. Jesus, I trust in you. That is the phrase to trigger the divine mercy egregor. And once you say that at 3 o'clock, remember there was a time. Once you say that at 3 o'clock, now the egregor is listening to you. And it's now waiting for your instructions, provided you've also done the other things. Remember, the nun who put this out, Sister or Saint Faustina, she listed out the things that had to be done. So once you call on it and you say the chaplet, say the novena, and call on it, boom, the egregor is now listening to you and is waiting for your instructions. Okay. So now we have people saying, but I see Jesus. I've spoke with Jesus, and Jesus came to me. There are people who have had NDEs and near-death experiences. I remember there was this boy, I think he was 11 years old, who wrote a book saying that, he passed away and came back. And when he went, he saw Jesus and he saw heaven and he saw these things. And, he sold millions of books and people, he had, followers and things like that. And so we now ask ourselves, so if there's a Jesus egregor, what exactly are these people seeing? What are they seeing? What is this that they're hearing? What are they interacting with? But what we need to understand is that egregors that have been well constructed can appear to the human eye, and they can appear to the human ear, and they can appear to the human touch. They can walk and talk just like you and I. Okay? And that's why the Tibetan monks were using their tulpas to do work in the community, especially work that they themselves, on a human level, they couldn't do. They would assign it to the tulpa. And the tulpa is the name for the egregor that they create, okay? But we need to understand that apparitions, when you see an egregor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a spirit guide. It doesn't mean it's a spirit guide, okay? Now, here are some examples of some folks who saw apparitions of Jesus, which are egregors that came into physical manifestation, and how this came about. We have Saint Teresa of Avila, who reported visions of Jesus guiding her when she was in ecstatic prayer. What is ecstatic prayer? Ecstatic prayer is a prayer that you're praying and you now fall into ecstasy. Okay? And for those of you who have the experience of speaking in tongues, you might have an idea of what we're talking about. There's some kind of prayer that you can pray that you feel like your spirit has been liberated. You feel like you have left your body. You are on cloud 9. You may not even cloud 9. You might be on cloud 15. If someone were to pinch you during that feeling, you would not feel anything. If someone were to smack you, you would not feel a thing because your body is flooded with endorphins and dopamine and serotonin. I mean, your body is over. You are like somebody who is on the ecstasy, you know what I mean? The one that people drop into drinks. You be out of your mind. And that state of ecstasy, you will be experiencing a very high level because of all these endorphins running through your blood. You will be so happy that you can't even describe it. You will be in a state of bliss. If you're a Buddhist, you know what I'm talking about. A lot of Buddhists will deliberately go into ecstasy. Hindus also have practices that lead them there. Zoroastrians also have practices that lead them into ecstasy. When we talk about Gnostic Christians, which is the spiritual aspect of Christianity, the Gnostics could pray themselves into an ecstatic state. The mystical branch of Islam, which are the Sufi, the Sufi also know about ecstasy. Remember the whirling dervishes? They will be spinning and spinning and praying and singing and spinning, and then they'll go into ecstasy. So Saint Teresa of Avila started seeing the apparitions of Jesus when she was in ecstatic prayer. But how did she get into the state of ecstasy during prayer? She got there through intense fasting, suffering, and devotion. And this is what allowed her to tap into the egregor. Let me give another example. Have you ever heard like when someone is very hungry, they start seeing things? Or when somebody is very thirsty, they start seeing things? A live example is like when people are out in the desert and they're very dehydrated. Extremely dehydrated person in the desert will be looking out into the desert distance and they will start seeing water. And there's no water there. But their mind, they're now seeing water and they're looking and they're seeing something that looks like an oasis. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's water. And they keep on running towards it only to discover that there's no water. All they were seeing was a mirage. So when we experience extremes of stress in our mind, we can start seeing and hearing things. Okay? When the brain is going through extremes, we can start hearing and seeing things. Thank you for sharing this, your infinite one. Hi, Moneybag. So now we're being told that Saint Teresa, she did intense fasting. What is intense fasting? You could have someone who's doing a dry fast for 30 days. They're not drinking anything. They're not eating anything. Their body is feeding on itself. That's why they were so skinny. That's why they were so bony. Dr. Karen, hallucinations? Yeah, like hallucinations. Yes, yes, you're correct. Okay. So there are people when they, and we see this even in abuse situations where someone has been so severely abused, they're hearing things and they're seeing things that the rest of us are not seeing and hearing. They're, you know, they're seeing and hearing things. And there's so many research articles on this. That's when you say, you hear people say, my mind is playing tricks on me. Some of you might have heard that phrase, my mind is playing tricks on me. Because the mind goes into this where it starts seeing things and it starts tapping. That's the important thing. The mind starts tapping into other dimensions of reality. And so for us here, we'll say it's a hallucination. But the person has induced this stress in their brain that they're now tapping into different dimensions of reality. Love 3 says astral plane. Yeah, sometimes people will tap into the astral plane where these egregors exist. And so they start seeing things and it's real to them. And they start hearing things and it's real because they're no longer in this reality, they're in a different reality. Okay. St. Francis of Assisi received the stigmata, if you're familiar with it. He started manifesting the stigmata on his own body, where, if you know the story of the crucifixion, Jesus was the man was crucified. He had nails going through his hand and his feet and his side, and was bleeding water and water and blood. St. Francis of Assisi, again, when he was doing his fasting and his prayer and the self denial, tapped into that dimension and started connecting with that egregor. Remember that in order to tap into these apparitions, which are the manifestations of these egregor, you have to be, your mind and your body has to be in an extreme state. You can't just wake up in the morning and they're like, okay, today is a good day for me to see an egregor. No. And sometimes people, religious people, or people with mental health issues, they figure out how to induce themselves to see these apparitions. So they already know the formula. Oh, I want to see an apparition. I know what to do. I'm going to do a dry water fast for 30 days, or I'm going to do a fast for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm going to whip myself. I'm going to starve myself. I'm going to, do whatever it is that I need to do. So they get to the point where they know what to do in order to induce the vision of the apparition, and then they'll say, "Oh, I had a vision." Ask yourself this: how many times has a well-fed person seen a vision? Ask yourself, how many times have you had someone? The person went to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Okay, okay. Have you ever seen somebody who was healthy like me? Ever having a vision? The only time you will have a healthy person like me having a vision is if I have a mental health issue. That's the only time you will see a healthy person, well fed. You see, I'm not showing any bones, no bones. I've been working on trying to show some bones. Okay. No bones. Okay. You're not seeing no bones here. No bones. We don't see visions. We're too well fed. But if you look at everyone that says to you, I saw this, I heard this, they're skinny. And they were doing something. They were fasting, they were crying, they were doing something to themselves. And then they saw that vision. So keep this in mind. You don't have somebody who was like, oh, I'm out here minding my own business. I'm eating my 3 squares with my 2 snacks every day. Mm-mm. It's when the person starts fasting and praying and crying and, doing all these extra things. I'm putting their brain and body in a state of extreme stress. Then they'll start seeing things and they'll start tapping into all these other dimensions where they start seeing things. Okay. So when we talk about St. Francis of Assisi, who had the stigmata, that was the effect of the egregor imprinting itself on him. He connected the Jesus egregor that he connected to was the suffering one, the one that went through extreme suffering and pain. And so as soon as he tapped into that egregor, that and connected to that egregor, boom, 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 he started bleeding, started having the injuries and everything. We need to understand the mind is a powerful thing. They've had these experiments where they've said to somebody and they convince the person, sometimes under hypnosis, and they'll say, here we have this bowl of water. It is hot. If you dip your hand in it, you will scald your hand. And the person dips under hypnosis, dips their hand into it, and they come out with a scald. But that water was cold. That shows you the power of the mind. And some of these folks here, you could say they were under a form of self-hypnosis. Okay. We have nuns and martyrs, countless nuns in convents across Europe. I need you to hear this and understand this. Listen to this very carefully. Countless of nuns in convents across Europe described intimate marriages with Christ, even sexual in nature. And this extended to the Americas and also to Africa and to Asia. But you know what is interesting about this? If these people were experiencing intimacy with the apparition of Jesus, they called it a marriage, a holy marriage, that it proved that they were the brides of Christ. But if they had these intimate encounters with something else that wasn't the Christ, guess what they called it? Does anybody know what those were called? If these nuns, especially the nuns, and you had some men, some monks, some ascetics, okay, yeah, but there's a specific name for those demons. And I have a free YouTube video on that. What were those kind of, what were they called? Anybody know? And I want us to, use our critical. Thank you. Incubus and succubus. Correct. Thank you, Elder Light. If you look at stories of incubus and succubus, you will see a whole bunch of that in European history, European religion, also in the Middle East. And people used to be consumed. Oh, somebody's, being intimate with me at night. Somebody's being intimate with me at night. Okay. And then they would have all these rituals and prayers and things to deal with it. Oh, that this person came and slept with me and sucked my energy. And then this man came and slept with me and sucked my energy. But do you see how that rule and description changed when the person now was having the same kind of experience, same kind of nocturnal experience, but now they're having it with an apparition of Jesus? They no longer describe that as incubus or succubus. They said, oh, it shows that I'm married to Christ. And it got to a point where a lot of these nuns and martyrs and monks started desiring this. And their mother abbots will say to them, oh, if you had this experience, then it proves that Christ actually married you. Because remember, when you become a nun, there are stages to becoming a nun. But the last stage of becoming a nun involves a ring. And they put a ring on your finger and they marry you. And they say, now you are a bride of Christ. That is why when you see a nun, she has a wedding ring on her finger. That's what that signifies, that she's married to Christ. She's married to Jesus. And she can never be married by any human being. So she goes through a wedding with vows to Jesus. And that's why they wear the ring. And you don't have to take my word for this. Google it for yourself. Google for yourself the process of becoming a nun. Google for yourself what's the meaning of the wedding ring. Why do nuns wear wedding rings? You can Google that for yourself. Okay, that's your homework assignment. So now you had all these young women. And remember back in the day in Europe, okay, people who joined the convent, you had women, if they could not get a husband by the time they turned 20, 21, if they couldn't get a husband, boom, their family would ship them off to a convent. Some women joined the convent because their families were too poor to pay the dowry. Because then they're the ones that pay the dowry to the groom's family. So if you found out that y'all didn't have money to pay for the dowry, you would just pack her off to the convent. Other women that got packed off to convent were those who were having premarital intimacy, and a child was a result of that. So in order to protect the family name, once a child was delivered, or they would send her to the convent. Once a child was delivered, then they would send the child away, adopt the child or whatever, and then she will remain in the convent. And for some women, it was an aspirational thing. Oh, if I'm in the convent, I'm holy. I'm special, specially chosen. Ife, Reverend Sister, is the same thing as nun. Yeah, Reverend Sister is the same thing as nun. A Reverend Sister is a nun. Okay? She's a nun. Anybody who's a Reverend Sister is a nun. That's the actual term, nun. Okay? So Google why they had these rings on their fingers. You would learn so much. You would learn so much about the process of becoming a nun. First is a declaration, you become a novitiate, and so on and so on and so forth. And remember when we talked about Sister Faustina last Wednesday, and she wanted to form a congregation of divine mercy. Remember, she was told by her superior she couldn't because she had sworn a perpetual vow to her congregation. So all of them there in the convent where she worked, they were all brides of Christ according to that vow they made there. Okay? So again, we need to understand that we had all these people joining, and they considered it an honor to be intimate with an apparition of Jesus. They considered it the highest honor. And so, if their natural urges rose like any other normal young woman, they wanted that urge to be consummated by their apparition of Jesus. And if that happened, glory be. Now, there was also some other tomfoolery going on in these convents, but we won't talk about that now because that's not the purpose of today's class. Okay. Martyrs facing death claim to see Jesus standing with them, promising paradise. And this was the egregor functioning as comfort, but also reinforcement of the institution of this religion. Remember when a martyr is someone who is given up, forced into transition, and alive because of their faith. And that is a very stressful place to be. And many of them will now start tapping into these dimensions where this egregor was. And as they prayed and cried and submitted and were so emotional about this experience, these things were the energy sources feeding into these egregors. Remember, those of you who came to class today, the member class today, remember what I said about spirit guides, and to a great degree, it also applies to these egregors. They must be fed with energy, and they're going to get that energy one way or the other. Some when we make an offering, that's a form of energy. When we make an animal offering, that's a high form of energy. When we offer a living thing, that is a form of energy. When you are emotional, that is a form of energy. Remember my video on energy vampires? If you haven't watched that video, I encourage you to go watch that video on energy vampires. There are people who consciously or unconsciously feed off of your emotional energy. And that's why they stir up conflict. That's why they always want to see you upset. That's why they always want to see you emotional. That's why they always want to see you cry. Because when you are emitting these emotions, you are emitting energy, and they're there and they're like, and they become stronger. And have you ever noticed that when you go through all of that, you are completely exhausted? And this is the same thing for these people who feed egregors. When you are feeding an egregor, it is feeding off your personal energy, your own spiritual energy, not the energy of your spirit guides, but your own energy. That is the reason why, after interacting so passionately and emotionally with an egregor, you are exhausted. And it took that energy and it becomes stronger. So a lot of these people who were seeing these apparitions, they kind of figured out that if I give my emotion, my energy, and I become drained out, I will see this thing. Have you ever seen a person who has gone through a 40 days and nights of fasting and they're able to climb a mountain, able to do all, lift a car, do all? No, they're tired. They're exhausted. Think about when you've gone to church and you were speaking in tongues and praying and falling out and crying and doing your night vigil and everything. Were you not exhausted after doing all those things? You were tired because you expended your energy. And that energy you expended went somewhere. It fed something. And so that's why when you have traditional religionist people, they will say, no, I don't want to use my personal energy to feed anything. I'm going to make an offering. And so they'll offer a chicken or offer a ram or offer whatever. So they're not using their own personal energy to feed. That's why you get wiped out. There are many people, have you ever noticed after going to church, you're just so tired? All you want is a big bowl of rice because rice is a quick source of energy. You go to church and all you can think of is, oh my God, I need to go home to my jollof rice, or I need to go home to my rice and stew, or I need to go home to my rice pilaf, coconut rice, fried rice, whatever kind of rice, or my potatoes. Because you've expended all this energy to feed the egregor. Okay. Now, there are more modern apparitions of Jesus. Okay, like the Marian apparitions. Marian apparitions means the apparitions of Jesus, the apparitions of Mary. Pardon me. There are people who say they've seen the Virgin Mary. Remember the three children who saw Mary at Fatima, Lourdes also, where Mary appears. But remember that these apparitions of Mary is always tied to the Jesus egregor. And whenever people see these visions of Mary or apparitions of Mary, what are the instructions? You must tie back to this Jesus egregor. So we find out that these egregores, when they have been created, they can manifest in multiple ways and use multiple manifestations to get people to feed them energy. And the more energy that they're fed, the more powerful they become and the more they can do. And they start gaining a very high level of self consciousness and self agency. Some of these egregores can now start telling you, giving you instructions. And they become almost like sentient. And they're like, okay, I need energy to survive. So I am going to do whatever it takes to get the energy I need to survive. Okay? In Pentecostal and charismatic circles today, people claim visions of Jesus in dreams, revivals, or during healing sessions. But you always notice that these people in these Pentecostal or charismatic circles are always emphasizing giving. Give, give, give. It's more blessed to give than to receive. Blessed are those who give. Give, give, give. You see that emphasis on giving. What are you giving? It's energy. Remember, there's emphasis on giving. Give, 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 give. Give, keep on giving. Sow the seeds that will shake the gates of heaven, do this, give, 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 submit. Some of them will use the term radical obedience. Obey without question. Submit, 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 give, 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 because the egregor is hungry for energy and it is never satisfied. So there's no amount of giving when you are feeding these Jesus egregors. There's no amount of giving of energy you will give that it will come to you one day and say, you know what? I've had enough. I'm full. That's it. You don't need to give me energy again for the rest. No, 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 no. After giving, you go and eat, you replenish yourself, and it says, come back and give again. The giving never ends. Okay? So now, if we look at the Christ archetype, we have Christ archetypes in different cultures like Krishna and Osiris. Okay. We see that there's a difference between the Christ archetype and the Jesus egregor. And we need to pay attention to this. There's a difference between the Christ archetype and the Jesus egregor. The Christ archetype emphasizes the Christ-like nature, the ideal. But the Jesus egregor emphasizes energy consumption. That's why when you're talking about the Jesus egregor, there's this talk about punishment and suffering and paying and forgiveness and things of that nature, because these are sources of pulling deep emotions, and these deep emotions are energy sources. But when we talk about the Christ archetype is focused on wisdom, gaining knowledge, self-liberation, self-knowledge. The Christ archetype, remember, and the Christ archetype, of course, comes after the Osiris archetype and comes after the Krishna archetype. But those archetypes are talking about liberation. Achieve liberation for yourself, not through anybody, not through anything. Thank you for the budding hearts. Achieve for yourself. You don't need to be crying and weeping and suffering and having all these strange experiences. Achieve it for yourself. Have the information emerge from within you. Do for yourself. But the Jesus egregor does not encourage doing it for yourself. It does not. You have to pray, you have to cry, you have to fast, you have to suffer. You have to pay a price. And that's why you hear that message repeatedly. Jesus paid a price. Jesus paid a price. Jesus paid a price. You too, you pay a price. And you're either paying in tithes and offerings and contributions, or you're paying with your tears. You're paying with your fasting. You're paying and paying and paying and giving and giving and giving and giving. But it's not teaching you how to use your own power to do it for yourself. No, you have to pay Okay. Transactional relationship. So remember what we discussed in member class today. Spirit guides, spiritual entities, egregors, servitors, all depend on transactional energy. In order to get, you have to give. And the reason why you give is so that you get. But when we start looking at Christ archetypes and Krishna archetypes and Osiris archetypes, Odin archetypes, we're seeing here where somebody says, scratch Odin, because Odin, in order to get knowledge, actually had to sacrifice himself and hang himself upside down on the tree for 12 days in order to gain arcane knowledge. So scratch Odin. Okay. You find out in these other parts, they're like, sit and figure it out yourself. Sit and figure it out yourself. Okay. So we need to understand that these apparitions of Jesus are not the historical Jesus. They have nothing to do with the historical, the man Jesus. Okay. Instead, the apparition is more about how one of the ways that the egregor manifests itself to people. And we have to understand that the egregor has gained such a level of sentience and self consciousness, self awareness, that it can sit down and think like you and I. Imagine me sitting here and let's say, for instance, I sat here and I'm going, oh, how can I make money off of my followers? How can I make money out of my subscribers? How can I make money out of my members? You see, I'm thinking for myself. And then my mind will start giving me suggestions. Oh, uh, tell them to celebrate my birthday. Okay, go make an announcement. Oh, Dr. Tochi is about to have a birthday. If you want to be blessed, send me money. Here's my Cash App. Here's my PayPal. Here's my Zelle. Here's my blah. Here's my blah. And so I start saying to you, give me, give, give. And if you give me, what I'm going to give you in exchange is something that's not, it doesn't have to be concrete. It's something nebulous. It's something that is intangible. Oh, if you give it to me, I'll bless you. What does that mean? What does that even mean? I used to work with an alpha for some years who was a Muslim cleric. And his method, he would ask for money. Oh, send me money, send me money, send me money. Send me money, send me money, send me money. You have more money than I do. You live in America, send me money. Send me money, send me money. Oh, my kids are hungry, send me money. My wife needs to start a business, send me money. Send me money, send me money, send me money. And there was all these things, these nebulous things he will put up as reasons as to why I should send him money, or those of us who knew him, why we should send him money. Oh, we're going to do prayers for you. Send me money. We want to do some work for you. Send us money. But after a while, I noticed that we were all the ones giving him, but he never gave. And so one day I said to him, "Can you loan me money?" And he says, "Oh, I wish you had asked yesterday." My wife and I had some money yesterday. If you had asked yesterday, but we don't have it today because we spent that money. 2 weeks later, he sent me an email saying, "I have so amount of money and I want to buy a car. Can I get your advice on what kind of car I can buy with this kind amount of money that I have?" hmm And it was always, "Send me money, send me money, send me money, send me money." And he now started developing skills in creating scenarios that would induce you to send money. "Oh, I'm about to go feed the widows. Can you send me money?" "I'm about to go feed the orphans. Can you send me money?" "We want to go and buy school materials for the school kids. Send me money." Okay. Send me money, send me money, send me money. Give, 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 give. But if you sat down and asked yourself, what exactly has this guy done for me? There's nothing. Oh, he will say, "Oh, I prayed for you." "I'm always praying for you. Send me money." And that is why, as we're here, we are here about practical spirituality, because we live in a transactional world, and many of us need to understand that we live in a transactional world. Some of us like to live in this la la land where, "Oh, I'll get it for free. Ask and you shall be given." Okay, you ask and you're given. But what are you also giving for that thing that you're asking? You're feeding the egregor. And sometimes what we're feeding the egregor is a lot more than what we're asking from the egregor. "Oh, I want Jesus to give me money so I can pay my rent for this month." But the amount of energy that left your body and the stress you put your body under at the end of the day is more in value than that rent you're asking for. Because when you have to go to the hospital to go get treated, or you have to go and get involved in some treatment protocol or health protocol in order to recover yourself, you find out that it costs more to do that than the rent that you were asking for and hoping to come your way. And so that's why we need to start learning how to do things for ourselves, because each and every one of us showed up here with a certain level of spiritual power. And we showed up with our spiritual cruise. But religious thinking has gotten us to the point where we think all I have to do is pray and I'll get it. I don't have to give anything in exchange. All I have to do is believe and have faith. I will get it. But you find out that believing and having faith is insufficient. You have to fast. You have to pray. You have to speak in tongues. You have to throw yourself about. You have to make a fool of yourself in public. You have to associate with people you have no business associating with. You have to take out of the little that you have and give to that which has more than you do. So after a while, I gained sense from dealing with that young man because he was there saying, I pray for you. I pray for you. There was a time, because he's abroad. There was a time I told him, oh, can you help me go take care of this and this and this? He goes, oh, I don't have any money. I can't do it. I don't have any money. Send me money. Sometimes out of the blue, he would write me and say, send me money. I've seen pictures on your WhatsApp. I've seen pictures on your Instagram, your TikTok. I saw that you were at a party and y'all were having a good time and you were eating good food there. Send me money. He would ask me to send him money because he saw a video I posted of myself at a party. And he's like, oh, yeah, I saw the food y'all were eating there and the drinks y'all were drinking there. Send me money. Send me money. All of you were looking well fed in the video. Can you send me money? I'm suffering over here. Me and my wife and the kids. We don't have as much food as you do over there. Send me money. I can see the chicken portion sizes, the meat portion sizes that were in that video. Can you send me money so that we can buy meat and eat it the way that you guys are eating it over there? Send me money. So I decided to try his own experiment on him. So when he said, send me money, I said to him, I'm praying for you. And he said, what does that mean? I said, what it means is that I'm praying for you. I prayed for you this morning. I prayed for God to bless you, to feed you, to take care of you, to protect you, to guide you. And then he said, are you not going to send me money? I said, but I prayed for you. And he said, well, thank you for praying for me, but I need money. And I said, me too. And he said, well, but I've been praying for you that God should bless you and give you money. And I said, I did the same thing for you too. So the same way you're praying to God for me to give me money, I'm also praying to God for you to give you money. So God will give you money and give me money. And next thing he says, oh, Doc Tochi, are you trying to be smart? And I said to him, no, I'm not trying to be smart. I'm already smart. But I want you, I'm saying this, but I want you to pay attention to this to understand how to disengage from the egregor. Because once you stop feeding the egregor energy, it starts dying. It starts passing away. It starts fading. Because after I did that with this young man a couple of times, I stopped hearing from him. When he realized that the money tap had run dry, I stopped hearing from him. Because I said to him, the same way you're praying for me is the same way I'm praying for you. So let's all pray for each other. And he says, do you, if you know how I pray for you, I pray for you day and night. Every time I pray, I include you in my prayers. I pray for you all the, and I said, same thing over here. When we pray here, I make sure we pray for you. I have my family members pray for you. And once that energy of sending money and feeding and that, oh, each time, he was asking for money and I'm sending money. So once I was like, okay, here we are, it stopped. And the pressure on me stopped because I would be getting these messages like, what's up? Send me money. Send me money. Send me money. I can see you're doing well. Send me money. Send me money. Send me money. Send me money. And some of you listening to me today, you probably have family members who are like that. They never said, oh, how are you doing today? How's your job today? How's your health? What's going on? All it is send me money, send me money, send me money, send me money, send me money. And so there comes a time when you're like, no. And there comes a time when the person says, send me money, you send a message to them to say, send me money. So when we're talking about the Jesus egregors, plural, we understand that these things, many of them have gotten to such a level of sentience that they start making demands on you as a human being. And they will appear. Once you have put yourself in a state that you can connect, that you can start connecting to them at the dimension where they are, they will start making demands. If you venerate me, if you adore, and remember on Wednesday, we looked at the precise instructions that were given to Sister Faustina for Divine Mercy. It says, when you give yourself up to me in total adoration. What is total adoration? Total veneration, total submission. When you are in a state of total adoration, total submission, you are taking all that divine energy in you and you're putting it out and you're focusing and you're delivering it. That is adoration. Think of it this way. Let's say you're in love with somebody and you adore them. Let's say you love somebody and you adore them. Okay? You're always thinking of them. You're always thinking of ways to make them happy. You're always thinking of ways to please them. You are focused on the person. They can do no wrong. You are willing to take one for them. You even give them without asking. That is adoration. They could ask you for anything and you would give it without thinking about it. That is adoration. And so here we have this egregor saying, if you give me your total adoration, I will then do this thing for you. That's a transactional, that's a transactional arrangement. So the question you need to ask yourself is, am I willing to participate at this level of transaction? And what is it costing me to partake in this kind of transaction, energy transaction? So here's a question here's a question that I'm putting forth for you to consider. And you consider meditation. Family members are like this, like your grown children. Yeah, they're like that. Give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. Sit in meditation and call on your divine spirit, on your spiritual crew, and say, if I have encountered Jesus in visions or in dreams, I ask now, reveal to me what I truly meant. You can do this. Go into your sacred space and ask this question of your spiritual crew. Ask it of your creator. Was it Jesus the man, Jesus the archetype, or Jesus the egregor? Show me the truth beyond all illusion of what I met, what I'm connecting to. And then after you ask that question, sit quietly and start sensing how this feels in your body. If the presence starts feeling heavy, demanding, you start feeling guilty, you start feeling afraid, you're dealing with an egregor. If you start feeling scared, anxious after saying this thing, making this invocation, you're dealing with an egregor. You're dealing with Jesus the egregor. Okay? Have you learned anything in today's class? I was trying to get through quite a bit of material because it's a lot of material, but I was trying my best to plow through the material and get it out here. So, have you learned anything from today's class? If you've learned something, let's have your IAYE in the comment section. Have you learned something? Many of us are tapped into an egregor, the Jesus egregor. And we think we're tapped into Jesus the man. And when we start questioning it, people say, oh no, you don't want to be tapped into Jesus the man. You want to be tapped into Jesus the divine, the Jesus that is in heaven. Prove it. And the person will say to you, and the Bible said. But how about those sensors that the divine has already placed within your body that lets you know the difference between right and wrong, between truth and falsity? They don't ask you to consult that. They don't. Have you ever seen someone who is so fanatical about their Christianity ever say to you, trust your intuition? They will never tell you to trust your intuition. They will never tell you to rely on your intuition. They will always say to you, the Bible said, or my pastor said, or my evangelist said, or my apostle said, or my prophet said, or my this said, or my the other person said. They will never say to you, what does your intuition, what does your gut say to you? And some people too have even forgotten how to tap into their own gut. They have forgotten how to tap into their intuition. That matter of fact, the egregor has such a strong hold on them that what they think they're hearing is their own gut feeling, but it's not even their own gut feeling. It's just the egregor, because they're so interlaced into the egregor that the egregor has even cut off their own intuition. The egregor has cut off their intuition and cut off their common sense. And we know that when people say, oh, my pastor told me to show up in church without my underwear so that the Holy Spirit will have more free passage through me. Someone who says that kind of thing is lost. Or the pastor told them to go and eat grass outside to prove that God can sustain you with anything. And they will go out there and eat the grass. The tentacles of that egregor is so deep in them that they can't even access their own common sense or their own intuition. And sometimes when you're dealing with people like that, you get angry because you'll be like, don't you have any common sense? Can't you think for yourself? No, they're so hooked up into this egregor that they can't even think for themselves. It's not possible. And they misuse that slogan because that's not the meaning of that slogan. So when you have a situation where you're saying to somebody, this thing you're doing defies common sense, and the person says to you, oh, the Bible said, person's dealing with an egregor. And depending on how much of their mind that egregor has taken over, they may or may not be able to use their common sense. Talk less of tapping into their intuition. They may not even have that ability anymore. And so for the rest of their lives, they're going to be tapped into this egregor. The rest of their life, all of their life, everything in them is going to be spent feeding this egregor until they leave. That's it. There's nothing you can do for them. Okay. Remember again that in 7 days we have our spiritual fasting and cleanse come up online. All right. Today is the last day to sign up at the early bird price. Starting tomorrow, September the 8th, the price will go up. We will be spending 10 days together going through a spiritual fast and cleanse. If you want additional, you can sign up for VIP, and that includes Cowrie divination, spiritual counseling, and customized protocols from me. That's a VIP. But during this cleanse and fast, we're going to have our divinations. We're going to have our daily invocations. We're going to have rituals. But the focus is going to be on cleansing and fasting so that we can reset and start accessing our spiritual power for ourselves. You will learn how to do this for yourself because we'll do it together. Okay. If you want to purchase a spot, a seat for a scholarship for someone else, you can also do that because I'm aware that sometimes some of my followers from developing nations would like to participate in these, but because of the US dollar value in their country, they're unable to do so. So if you would like to sponsor someone, just let me know that, hey, I'm making this payment, award it as a scholarship to someone who's deserving. We can also do that. Okay. So today is the last day for the early bird admission, and it's going to start 7 days from today, which is September the 14th, and will go on for 10 days. So from September the 14th to September the 23rd. And we're all going to be in it together. We're going to fast together. We're going to cleanse together. Okay. So if you need more information about that, send me an email. All right. Send me an email. Then we'll send you information on how you can secure your seat. You need to be doing things like these, practical things like this. That's what you need to learn how to do. You need to learn these things so you can start doing them for yourself. Okay. I'm no longer of the group of, oh, just send me money and I'll pray for you. How do I know it's your prayers that is working or the prayers I already prayed for myself that is working? How do I know? You're saying, send me money. So I'm just going to send you money and you're going to pray. I'm not even seeing you pray for me. So how do I even know you're praying for me? But people do that. They will send money for nebulous things. It is what it is. Remember, you can book me for your divinations, spiritual practice coaching, spiritual counseling, dream interpretation, and more through my website at tochi.us or drtochi.com. I don't do transactions outside of my website. If you've had challenges in ordering things from my website, please send us an email to let us know. I went to the back end of my website and I'm seeing some people had some failed transactions. Okay. So if you're trying to purchase something from my website and you're having problems with it, we go to the backside to check. Make sure that when you're placing your order, you're answering all the questions in the form. Because I saw some people would answer some of it. They will say their billing address is different from their shipping address, and then they're not filling in the shipping address. You have to let us know where we need to ship the goods to. Okay. I know I'm a spiritual practitioner, but I want to use my spiritual practice for more important things than trying to figure out where you live and where I should ship your stuff to. Okay. We're thankful to our creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, and our spirit guides for today's forbidden fruit. May it multiply in our lives into more abundant fruit. Ashe. Isay. Kamagu. The calls of Lasedi Mkwande. Ayibabo and Yanho. It is done. It is finished. It's complete. Amen. Ma'at. Thank you for coming to class. Love you all.